Hey you guys, welcome back to another episode of Nick in the Kitchen. I'm Nick and today we're cooking for Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl is my favorite kind of non-holiday holiday. It's like the fun Thanksgiving because you get to have a bunch of different snacks. As you can see, that's all I care about. And you get people to come together, the food's really good, and I'm always looking for new dishes to bring to the Super Bowl party. And so I'm bringing you 2 new dishes today that you can use on Sunday when you watch the big game. The first one is going to be a crispy chicken meatball with Mumbo Sauce because your girl is from the DC area. And the second one is going to be a low carb option, and those are Shrimp Po Boy Skewers. So let's get into it. All right, so what we have here is some ground chicken. I like to do ground chicken and not ground chicken breast because you get a little bit more fattiness, and when you have a meatball, you really want the inside to be juicy and tender, and chicken breast just doesn't do the same thing. You can grind up your own chicken if you want, if you have a food processor or a meat grinder. I'm just using some pre-packaged. This is 2 pounds. And in the bowl with the chicken, I have 1 egg. And so I'm just gonna break the yolk and kind of mix that around a little bit. I'm not gonna mix everything together until I have everything in the bowl because the thing with ground meat is if you move it and manipulate it too much, you'll really get a tough meatball. It's like so much that goes into this, right? And so here we have some panko breadcrumbs that I've soaked in buttermilk because the illusion is that we're having kind of like fried chicken, right? So it's like a fried chicken meatball. So I have this little concoction. They've soaked it up, and I'll probably add a little bit more buttermilk just depending on how the mixture looks because you want it to be moisturized but not like too much. And then I have some spices here. If you want the full spice blend, just go ahead over to LaissezAngel.com. The recipe is up. And so I'm gonna dump that all in. I have some crispy shallots. You really don't wanna put raw onion into your meatballs unless it's really, really finely chopped. So I like to go ahead and saute mine down. Sometimes I do the same thing with garlic, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. These are caramelized, which just means that they were cooked down and released their own natural sugar. And what that does is it adds some savoriness, but also just a pop of sweetness to this because our sauce is very, very bold. I'm gonna do a little bit of Dijon mustard, just about a teaspoon in there. And I'm gonna add in some salt. You wanna make sure to season appropriately. And like I always say, you want about a teaspoon per pound of meat, but I'm gonna do about 1 teaspoon in these because they are good and covered in sauce. And then I'm gonna take just a little bit of our chopped garlic. This is very finely minced, so it's okay for it to be raw as it's going in. That's about a teaspoon of that. And I'm gonna take some olive oil because we wanna add some fat back into our meatball. And now we're just gonna go ahead and give it a mix to get everything kind of really well incorporated. If you have gloves, this is even easier to do because you can mix it with your hands. So one thing that inspired me about this dish is, like I said, I grew up mostly in the DC area. That is what I call home. It's where a lot of my family is located. And Mumbo Sauce is just one of those kind of classic DC things that you get when you go to the Chinese carryout. And so for me, coming up with my own version of Mumbo Sauce that's really good was always something that I enjoyed doing. But when I thought about how I would like to enjoy it in a different way, immediately my mind went to meatballs. I think that meatballs are such a good party food. And when you think of the Super Bowl, it really is a party. Everybody comes over, there's drinks, there's a ton of different food. Some people are watching the game, some people are socializing like me. So you get like a good combination of people, and you want to be sure to have foods that are fun for everyone. And that's why I wanted to bring 2 different options. Even these meatballs themselves, if you wanted to make them more low carb, you could substitute out the panko breadcrumbs for almond flour, and that would work just as well as a binder to keep them together. You could also dry out some keto friendly bread, low carb bread, and use that instead. All right, so we have everything mixed in, and it actually looks well moisturized, so I'm not gonna add any buttermilk or anything back to it. I don't want them to be too wet. I just want them to be moisturized enough so that when we cook them, they don't dry out. So now I'm gonna have to do what I don't really like to do and stick my hands in here without any gloves and roll these up into meatballs, and then we're gonna drop them into our frying pan to get them crispy on the outside before moving them into the oven to finish cooking in the center. All right, so we've rolled our meatballs here. And so what I have is like a little station. We're not deep frying these, so we don't need to do like an egg batter or egg wash into flour or any other combination. But we do want a little bit more crisp on the outside because this is supposed to remind you of like carryout wings and Mumbo Sauce. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our meatball that's been rolled and we're gonna put into this mixture of cornstarch and AP flour. I like to do kind of 2-to-1 cornstarch to AP flour, and it's been seasoned with a little white pepper and salt. And then we're gonna go into the hot oil that I have heating up in this pan. And so we're just gonna do this, like I said, to get this crisp on the outside. And we're gonna end up tossing these into the oven. And so I like to get a couple going at the same time so that you don't have like any overcooked kind of meatballs and then undercooked meatballs and just a little hodgepodge of doneness. And after they kind of get crispy, because I'm gonna work in batches, I am gonna add them back to this plate, which is fine, even though it was raw, because they're gonna get cooked in the oven and finish cooking through. So we'll be okay, and we will not risk any salmonella, which is what we always want to avoid when we're doing meatballs. All right, that was our last meatball. And so I'm just gonna dust my little fingers off. Because I'm gonna pick them up, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave my fingers a little dusty. And we're gonna just place these into the oil. And you can kind of hear that crisp. It's starting to cook up and give you that really crispy outer texture that we're going for with these. I'm really excited about them actually. So I'm gonna do half and I'll do the other half. And I only did 12, but that recipe will make about 24 to 28 meatballs of this size. And if you go smaller, you'll get like double. So, you know, give it a try, work with the size that you like, and follow the same exact procedure. So we're gonna let them cook on each side for about a minute and then pop them all into the oven. So while these are frying, I just wanted to give you a really close-up angle on the outside of these. They're brown. You can hear it when you scrape your finger up against it. It's the perfect vessel and vehicle to be able to grip on to our Mumbo Sauce when we toss these in there. And you don't have to toss them if you don't want to, you can dip them, but I like to toss them because when I order my chicken wings and Mumbo Sauce, I get Mumbo Sauce on top and on the side. So I'm gonna put it just like that when I do these meatballs. Okay, so our meatballs are fried and we're just gonna take them and add them back to the same pan we fried them in. I went ahead and wiped this out so that we can use the same pan. If you don't have a pan that can go from the stove to the oven, you can do these on a baking tray. If you do them on a baking tray, I would suggest that you use a rack. I just think that helps to keep all sides of the meatball crispy as the fat drips out. But in this pan is fine because these have been mostly cooked, so there's not too much fat that is gonna render out of these. So we're just gonna drop them all in the pan, nestle them in nice and cozy, and pop these in the oven. They're gonna bake for about 12 to 15 minutes just to cook on the inside or until the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees. All right, so while our meatballs are in the oven, we're gonna go ahead and make our Mumbo Sauce. It takes about the same amount of time to cook, maybe a little bit longer if you like it as a thicker, more gelatinous sauce. So just kind of gauge it with your temp, but let me walk you through how you make that. All right, guys, so we are going to make some Mumbo Sauce. Monique's Mumbo Sauce, or Momo Sauce as my sister calls it. So the first thing you want to do is add in our ketchup. Ketchup is the base of this, and you can make it from tomato sauce and kind of make your own ketchup, but that's a lot of steps that you don't have to do. If you want to keep it lower carb, go ahead and go with sugar-free ketchup. After that, we'll add in some salt, but just a little bit because we can always go back and season later because we are using pre-made ketchup and because we are using other flavorings that have some salt content, we don't want to over salt it. So just about 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon here. After that, we'll add our sweetener. Here I'm using sugar, but again, if you want to keep it low carb, go ahead and use something like monk fruit or allulose, and that will keep you keto. After that, let's just add in our flavorings. We're gonna go with some smoked paprika, some hot sauce, which really depends on how spicy you want it. I went with about 2 tablespoons here because I like a sweet, tangy, spicy combo, but you can leave it out altogether, add in more or less. After that, we're gonna add in some soy sauce. That's really gonna kick up the flavor, and this is what I was talking about with the salt content. You can also substitute this out for tamari or coconut aminos to keep it gluten-free. After that, add in some rice vinegar. I went with about 3 to 4 tablespoons here. This is your kind of tangy, sour, tart flavoring, so you can add more or less, but you definitely want to include it because it is going to give you that sour taste, but not kind of traditional that you would get with regular vinegar. After that, I like to stir it around to get those ingredients combined, and then just add in some water, about 1/4 of a cup. Stir that around and let it simmer for at least 5 minutes, longer if you want it to be more congealed. All right, let's get back to the rest of the recipe. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make some shrimp po' boy skewers. So this is a low carb option for people who want to enjoy the Super Bowl and have all the good food that everybody else has, but doesn't want to just eat like the lettuce tray to make your burger, right? So what we're gonna do is take our shrimp. This is a bowl of shrimp. These are already peeled, but they're raw. They're peeled and deveined. You can do it yourself. You can buy them just like this. And these are kind of medium shrimp, so that we can get a few on the skewer, but you can do whatever size you like. And this is my seasoning blend. It has some Cajun seasoning, some thyme. It has our celery seed, it has some garlic powder, some onion powder, and white pepper. And we're gonna go ahead and add this right to our shrimp. So this seasoning blend is gonna give you some real Cajun, like New Orleans flavors. It's got everything that you need. I bet everything that I'm gonna season it with is on the shrimp right now, except for the salt. When you add salt to shrimp too early, you tend to get tough shrimp. And so I'm just gonna add that salt right before it hits the pan. But for now, I'm gonna let these set up and kind of absorb those flavors right here in the bowl so we can make our remoulade sauce that we're gonna serve over the skewers while these are kind of marinated and resting. All right, so we're gonna make our remoulade sauce, and I went ahead and added a bunch of things already to our measuring cup. So what we have here is some good mayonnaise. You want a good mayonnaise that has a lot of good flavor because that's kind of the base of your remoulade. I have some Dijon mustard, some dill relish, some hot sauce. I'm adding in a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Now you can also use tamari, or you can use soy sauce. Just use a little bit less soy sauce, it's kind of salty. And then we're gonna add in our spice blend, very, very similar to our shrimp seasoning. We wanna reinforce those Cajun flavors. And then we're gonna use some olive oil, but I like to add the olive oil after I kind of mix things up because it lets me know how much I need. We want a pourable sauce on this one. There's also already salt in here. And that is because it's a sauce. It's not like the shrimp where it'll make it tough. And so here's our remoulade sauce. That's kind of the texture. If you were putting this on a sandwich, it would be perfect. For our shrimp skewers, I want it just a teeny bit thinner. So I'm gonna add in just about a teaspoon of olive oil, just a little bit. And that's gonna make it feel rich in our mouths, but it's also gonna help it kind of flow a little bit better and be more pourable. And just that little bit made it a lot thinner. So this sauce can be made up to a day in advance, which makes it really, really delicious. And so we're going to just sit it to the side so it can marinate as we cook our shrimp and assemble our skewers. So we have our pan here. The oil in here has been heating up, and I'm gonna add in my salt now. And we want enough just to bring out those other flavors. And we're gonna mix this around. And the pan is on like medium high because we wanna get a sear on our shrimp, and they'll cook so quickly that, you know, this takes no time. So this is a perfect one for Super Bowl, especially if you're trying to come up with a low carb option and you're not sure what to make. If the people eat shrimp, they will definitely appreciate this super simple but super flavorful recipe. Now you wanna make sure you don't crowd the pan, but you know, don't be afraid to get them all in here because we're not going for like a fried shrimp or super hard sear. We're just getting them brown and bringing out those flavors. So we're gonna cook them on one side, flip them over, and then set them to the side on a plate. And then we'll bring in everything else that we need to assemble our skewer and dive in. So we're getting some good crisp on the outside of the shrimp. So I'm just flipping them over so that we can cook them on the other side really quickly, and throw these onto a plate and do our second batch. So I just want to show you, we get like some good crust on the outside, and that's the seasonings that coated it. Instead of having to add flour, you can make these skewers with fried shrimp if you want to. That'll add to kind of that po' boy vibe, but because this is a low carb version, I went ahead and left the breading off. I don't want to add any unnecessary carbs that we don't need. All right, so our shrimp are all done. I'm gonna give one a taste for scientific purposes. They're so good. They're cooked just perfectly. So they're still tender in the center, but the outside has all of that flavor that we put on there. We don't have to adjust for any seasoning, add anything else. I also have some marinated tomatoes. These have been marinated in olive oil with garlic and Italian seasoning. And then we have our butter lettuce. So typically a po' boy will have some shredded lettuce. It'll be on a good piece of bread that is so soft and delicious that we cannot have if we're low carb. And then there's tomatoes and our remoulade sauce. Some people add pickles, some people will add onions and other things, but just at the baseline level, lettuce, tomato, your protein, and your good remoulade sauce. So that's how we're gonna build these out. But feel free to adjust it if you wanna add onions, if you wanna add some pickles, do whatever you want. Just keep it, you know, simple. So what we're gonna do first is transfer our remoulade sauce into a container that'll be nice for the table. So I'm gonna throw this in a bowl and just get all of that goodness in there. It smells great, it looks great, and it tastes great too. It's perfect. It's like a really spicy tartar sauce, right? And I don't mean spicy as in hot. There is some hot sauce in there, but spicy as in like different and unique. If you really want to take this to the next level with your seafood po' boys or po' boy skewers, add in a little bit of anchovy paste. It brings in some umami flavor, but also reinforces that of the sea flavor. So I'm gonna set that to the side, and we're gonna start building our skewers. And so I like to use butter lettuce because it's really soft, it's very pretty, and you can bend it pretty easily to get it onto your skewer. So I just take a couple pieces and put that on first. I'm just gonna slide that down. And then I'm gonna take some shrimp because they're the star of the show. I'm gonna get those on. And you can use wooden skewers if you want to. I do suggest that even though you're not grilling with them, you still kind of soak them because it just makes it easier to eat and you don't have to worry about any like splinters or anything. So I take our marinated tomato and I put that in the middle. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm not a huge tomato person, so I'm only gonna add one. Even though these tomatoes taste really good, I'm only gonna add one of them in the middle for this one. But you can build them how you like. The tomatoes that are marinated taste really great, especially with like mozzarella cheese or something like that. But I don't think you need too many. And so here's our skewer. We have all this flavor. And so then at the end, what we'll do is, you know, decorate it with our sauce or just dip it or whatever. You'll see me eat them. So I'm gonna build some more skewers and I'll show you what it looks like all completed. All right, so we've assembled our skewers. We have the lettuce, the marinated tomatoes, those shrimp that taste so delicious. And then we have our remoulade sauce. So there's two ways you could do this. This is served on the side so people can dip it, but I really like to take some and just kind of drizzle it over. I think that makes it taste really good and you kind of get everything in one bite. And it makes it fun for people to eat too. So I'll just drizzle over just one and anybody else can dip it. And I drizzled it over the one I wanted to eat. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and taste these right now. Oh, I'm so excited. And like the best thing about this is because you have like two solid pieces, like the lettuce on one hand and the tomato on the other, you can slide these off and have almost like a little wrap. And eat it in one bite. Oh my gosh, guys. It's so good. It tastes just like a po' boy, but of course without the bread, which is a part of the experience, but I don't miss it. And it's also really nice just for people who are trying to stay low carb and watch their carbohydrate intake. Such a good option. They get a little bit of crisp from the shrimp, so it's almost like having a bread there. They get this lettuce, which is a great vehicle for taking it off. And then those marinated tomatoes just take it to another level. Of course, you could just put tomatoes on, but marinate the tomatoes, okay? Do it for yourself, because you don't have to use them just for the skewers. You can use them for anything. And one suggestion that I would have is, if you don't want to stay completely low carb, but you don't want to eat a whole sandwich, toast up some bread on the outside, but make sure it's soft enough on the inside to go on, and put it on the ends in between so you can make little mini sandwiches on the skewer. These are so good. I'm gonna try not to eat them all, but we have to get back to our meatballs, so let's check that out. All right, so we just did our po' boy sliders, and now we're back with our chicken meatballs and mumbo sauce. So you saw how I made the mumbo sauce, and we let that chill out for a bit, get all incorporated. The flavor's really good, and now you can see the texture is perfect. This is the way I like my mumbo sauce. If you like yours looser, you just cook it for about 3 minutes less. If you like it tighter, you cook it for 3 minutes more. So this is kind of right in between that jelly and that really loose sauce. And so what I like to do when I order my wings and mumbo sauce, I like to get mumbo sauce on top and then some on the side. And so that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm going to take our mumbo sauce, just a little, and I'm gonna pour some right in the pan, not too much, because these are just to get them coated, and then I'm gonna toss it around. I may end up adding more, but for now, let's start with this much, because it's just enough to get the outside kind of wet and get that flavor on there. It smells so good. It smells just like the carryout. And if you've never been to DC to have wings and mumbo sauce, then go ahead and make this for yourself. The only thing that you need to do is make some crinkle cut fries and put salt, pepper, and ketchup. And that's like your perfect box. Or you can do fried rice. Yeah, you can do fried rice if you want to. For me, shrimp fried rice is the only fried rice that exists when it comes to carryout food. But you can do whatever you like. And so now we have them, they're all coated in our sauce, just enough but not super dripping. And I'm gonna transfer them to these cute little plates, but when you serve these up, you could do it in a crock pot, you could do it all in the pan and toss all the sauce in there. It's really on how you wanna serve them. So we've got like 2 little mumbo sauce meatballs. We're gonna do 2 more on this plate. I literally could probably eat all of these because I just love wings and mumbo sauce so much. And then, because, you know, it's wings and mumbo sauce, let's take a little bit and pour it over the top. I just think they look so good like this. I'm just gonna do one, and then that way you can see what they both look like, have an option. And you know, while it's not traditional to add fresh herbs on top because we're giving a presentation, I'm just gonna throw on just a little bit of cilantro. You can use parsley also, and just kind of let that sing on the plate. All right, so we have our wings and mumbo sauce, meatballs, all on the plate. I'm going for this one because there's extra sauce on top the way that I like it. You don't have to do the herbs, but if you want to, like I said, cilantro, parsley, also green onion, anything works. And I just want to show you guys the inside of this meatball before I dig in. It's still very juicy. It's incorporated. It doesn't look mushy. It has its own texture. The outside is crispy, even though we added the mumbo sauce to it. And you can see the flavor in it. You can see some of the teeny tiny little garlic pieces. The caramelized shallots are in there, and that's just gonna make for a really delicious bite. Because I'm on camera, I need to take a smaller bite for you guys. So let's go. Okay, don't walk, run to your grocery stores to get all of the ingredients for this. It's perfect. It is literally like eating a piece of fried chicken with a delicious mumbo sauce on top. These would be a hit at your next Super Bowl party. And if you want, you can deep fry these, you can pan fry them like I did. You can completely roast them. It's all up to you. Each version is gonna give you a different texture on the outside, but either way, the flavor is amazing. If you've never had Mumbo Sauce, I can tell you, as someone who grew up in the area, this is legit. My version is a little bit spicier. If you want it less spicy, just take it down a little bit. That's in the meatball and in the Mumbo Sauce, but either way, it's winner. I'm so glad y'all joined me to learn these recipes for Super Bowl weekend. For the full recipe, make sure you head over to lizzieangel.com and snatch it up so you can have the best Super Bowl party ever. All right, bye.